Hello, everyone. My name is Lane Tenney, and I am the writer-director of Mon Ami and Darius Opus. On today's episode, we will not be talking about Darius Opus. We will be talking about Mon Ami, my very first short film. And when I say very first short film, technically I have made films back in high school, but I don't know. It's a weird relationship that I have with those. Um, I consider those more. I was making films in high school for a class, and I was just having fun with my friends, and I was screwing around and just making really goofy stories. So, well, yes, I have made short films before. I really truly consider this my very first short film. Not just because I made it in my freshman year of college at CU Denver, but also because it was my first time directing a crew of 14 people. When I was directing films in high school, I would have to be doing the writing, the directing, the camera, the editing, the sound, everything was done by myself. So this one was, and we'll get into it. This one was really a big switch up just because, I had to give and I also had to direct people and I had to give up power while also be able to lead people. And it was just, yeah, we'll get into it. Today we're going to be talking about Mon Ami. And the reason I'm talking about this is because it got accepted into its very first film festival. I don't know how to pronounce its name. I think it's Momentu or something like that. Momentu. I don't know. But it's very late. It's like 1 in the morning, but I decided I wanted to talk about it. So yeah, let's get it. So first of all, I really, really want to dive in into that this is such a personal project, not only because, I wrote it and I directed it and blah, 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 but it's also because I co-wrote it with my best friend Ian McDonough. And a little backstory on that, I used to work at a diner when I was about like from 15 to 17 years old before I moved into dorms at college. And, my best friend Aiden would work there along with my best friend Kilman. And they're both in the film, Brown and Blonde, and they would act in my films and they would help me write my films in college or sorry, high school. And one day, Aiden said, before you go to college, I really want to write a short film with you because I don't know if you'll be able to put me in your movies anymore. I said, okay, I would love that. Let's make a horror film. And the very first idea that we had, or that I had at least, that he hated this idea, um, was I wanted to create, after seeing Long Legs, I wanted to create kind of the story where the guy gets kidnapped and the kidnapper turns him into a woman. And I wanted to put Aiden as the guy that gets kidnapped, and he was like, I don't want to do that. So that was my first idea. And then he came to me with an idea about two friends that are going on a camping trip and are very scared of losing their friendship, which came from a very personal thinking process from him. So from then on, I just started writing out the story on paper. I said, well, we wanted it to be a silent film. And I said, well, how do we do that? So we came up with the idea of the radio. The radio is a metaphor for both of them. The radio, when it's on a political channel, it talks about blonde. It's about blonde's feelings. When it's on the weather channel, it's talking about brown's feelings. So that's where it came in. That's where the radio and, the war came in. And then shout out to Jamie. I don't know your last name, but he's a senior now at CU Denver. He was part of the film club, and he basically said, if they're draft dodgers, why don't you make it more clear that they're draft dodgers? I think he actually gave me the idea to make them draft dodgers. Um, and yeah, that's where the idea just really sprouted. And, I submitted it to the film club. They picked it up. Um, and it just went from there, and I got a huge crew. I mean, it was so weird because this was like 2 months into my freshman semester, fall semester, first semester at college, and I was already working with people that I barely knew, people that I never really even talked to before, but we all just came together and made the movie. And there were, there were some problems on set, and there were some grudges that are still held today, but we made a great movie, and I will forever thank the crew that worked on that movie because, I mean, just from the very beginning, I was determined to make sure Mon Ami never looked or felt like a typical student film. The problem that I have, and I can't speak because I feel like I fall into the cliches. I mean, I'm just starting out. Obviously, I'm going to fall into the cliches, but I feel like from the very beginning, I was determined not to make a very typical short film. And I don't think I made it a very typical student film. I think every choice from the framing to the pacing to the color palette, it was very carefully considered and was thought over with every person in the crew. It was thought over with my first AD, Cass Pucci. It was thought over with Christoph Pfeiffer, my DP, and my camera crew, my lighting, and I mean, I think my lighting crew, my key grip Rodenbach, who doubled as a composer, and then Jacob Len, who's my gaffer, they probably had the easiest jobs on set because they kind of just held a fill board or just sat around and talked to each other. But I mean, that was all to serve a specific mood and tone. I wanted it I wanted the audience to feel this raw emotion of these two characters. And I'm sorry if my voice sounds like shit. I've lost my voice. I should have said that at the beginning of the video. Sorry. But that goes into another part of the movie is collaboration was a huge part of Mon Ami. And I think it's one of the most eye-opening parts of the making this film was seeing how much it evolved from the script. The script I wrote on paper. I mean, I submitted it to the film club. I was late to the film club and I just wrote on a Google Doc. I wrote mine on paper and I mean, I didn't know you were supposed to make a pitch deck. I didn't know what that was, so I kind of just like held up the script and was like, "Here's the script." But the way that it evolved from that script to the screen was purely because of the people involved and everybody on the crew, you know, really made it amazing. I mean, I'm still stunned at, what my crew did for me. Um, because I mean, even just the ending is so different from what I wrote in the script. I wrote in the script, and Aiden never liked this, so I probably should have listened to him. But I wrote in the script where the first ending, and this was the ending that I pitched to the film club, what they saw. The first ending was Blonde stabs Brown in the shoulder, and they wake up, hours later, and they're fine. Brown doesn't die, Blonde is fine and they finally talk to each other and they separate their differences and it's like okay that's a little it kind of defeats the whole purpose of they never talk to each other and the whole point of them not talking to each other in the film is just completely thrown away and then I wrote into the script that he kills him and it's like a Darth Vader scream of him going no and it's like it was stupid and I mean thank God Aiden was the actor for Blonde because I literally told him I was like, I want you to scream like Darth Vader, and that was probably the stupidest thing I've said as a director. But he's my friend, so he'll tell me that that's bullshit. But also, I think going back with Aiden is like writing with him was such a deep creative process because he wrote mainly most of the dialogue for the radio because it was his idea. So I said, why don't you write most of the dialogue? I'll write the descriptive, what they do, what they're going to do, because it was always, you're going to direct this, I'll just write the story. And I was like, okay. And we built the story and we bounced ideas back and together. I mean, I remember working, I was a food runner, so I'm running food back and forth, and he's just sitting there writing it. And he would look at me and like wave to me, and I would go over and I'd be like, okay, well, what's happening in this scene? And we would rewrite it. And we basically shaped it into something personal yet universal to a general viewer's perspective. And I mean, I get so excited because I think this is the best short film I've made to the date. I mean, the more and more I talk about it, I kind of don't like Dario's Opus, but that's just because I made the film for awards and, man, I mean, Dario's Opus, it's fine. It's not a bad film. I don't think it is. Again, I love my crew and I love what they did for me, but like, think with Darius Opus, I was just so focused on crafting something that would impress the festival that I was submitting it to, which was FIT Cinefest, which was my school's Cinefest. So there's a bug. One second. Okay, I didn't catch it. It's somewhere. There's a mosquito in my room, and it's probably gonna suck my blood. I don't know. Anyway, Batari's Opus, it was it was the first like class film that I made, basically. So I made two films freshman year, and it was I think what was really lost was the authenticity because I was so worried about winning the best production award. And I hate saying that because I always tell myself never make movies for awards. But I did that. I tried to make this movie for an award and I tried to do all these things, these big spectacles to impress the teachers so they would pick it. And in return, I lost the authenticity and I lost the storytelling and I think it just I mean it came out fine. Like it was great and again, crew did a wonderful job. Like everybody on the crew did a great job and they gave it their all, but it wasn't, the vision that I had, and I don't think I've executed it well. But I think with Mon Ami, it was just way more authentic. I wasn't worried about anything like that, and I think that's what I want to take into production too for my next short film. Was I don't give a shit about awards. I don't really care. I'm just gonna make a film that is personal to me, and other people see it as personal will resonate with it. So going into Mon Ami, it was my first time directing a crew of 14 people. It was wonderful. I was like, wow, I get to be a director finally. I get to, finally do this. I get to be in the director's chair and but it was also super challenging. I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. And unfortunately, those mistakes were just always, pinned on me. It was like I'm still learning, but I took those mistakes. It's like, okay, I made those mistakes. Even though people held on to those mistakes through set and a lot of pre-production. As whatever, I get it. It's my first time being a director. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the people that thought I was a shitty director. I'm very sorry. But this sounds like I'm complaining, so I'm sorry. But I think I just want to say is like I made mistakes. I mean, sometimes I didn't listen as well as I should have, and that affected a lot, not a lot, but some relationships on set, I'm not going to name names, but like each misstep was a huge learning opportunity. And it taught me a very important lesson in collaboration. And it kind of humiliated me in filmmaking. And I think that was a good thing because, it taught me a huge lesson. I mean, this was a huge lesson. So it was a big win, but it was also a big step back, and it's like you need to learn way more. I'm going to take that into prod too. I want to talk about. Hmm, um, I talked about like a collaboration and all that. Again, this film. I mean, this film wouldn't be. I don't think this film would be nearly as great if I didn't have, certain people on my crew. I mean, just my whole crew. Again, I'm kind of glazing them, but they made it greater than just my vision. Obviously, you're never going to execute your film the way that you want it, like perfectly, unless you're a control freak. But it became such a shared vision, and it reflects that creativity and passion of every single person who worked on it, that it just is phenomenal. I mean, it's awesome. I love it. I love watching it. And I'm like, I love what everybody brought. But yeah. And again, I want to mention is like we were the only crew of all freshmen, and none of us had worked on a crew this big. And it wasn't really, I mean, it's not really a big crew, it's 14 people, but that was a big crew to us. I mean, it seemed big. Standing there on set, we were shooting and it seemed like a big crew. I mean, it was kind of a little too big because there were people that kind of were just sitting around at certain points, actually most of the time. But I think that's what made it work so well is everybody was just so comfortable. Everybody was just able to sit around and relax and nobody was cramped. We were outside. Um, but I lost my train of thought. What am I talking about? I think right now I really want to dive into like moments where I wasn't the strongest as a director and I was, learning. Because there were definitely moments on set where I felt completely out of my depth. I mean, again, it was like my first time directing a crew of 14 people. Like it was a big crew to me. I had a producer. I never had a producer before. I had a first AD. I had like an actual DP. So it was crazy. It was great. I had a script supervisor. Shout out to Leo. He was awesome. Shout out to Tyler. I mean, Tyler was a great producer. Um, Godsend. But I remember, early on, even just being nervous, we had to do like interviews. We had um, everybody would come into the room and they'd be like, well, I want to do this on set and I want to do this on set. And even just at the start, I made a big mistake by just saying yes to everybody. I was like, okay, you have the part. Boom, you're on set. Um, Without even like checking if they were qualified or checking if they were able to come to set or if they were able to um be in that role. But early on, I was just like, am I able to handle this large amount of crew? Are they going to respect me? Because, I mean, I'm a pretty short guy, and I got like I can sometimes have a Napoleon complex and be loud and shit. Are they going to respect me because I'm always self-degrading? Are they going to be able to? Are they going to read the script? Are they, and some people didn't. Are they going to understand what this script is about, understand the vision? So, what if I don't communicate to them? And, that's another thing I need to work on is like communicating to my crew. And what if I just, biggest thing was like, I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to mess this up. What if I mess this up? But, I mean, I kept pushing and, I feel like obviously there are things I should have put my foot down on and there's things I should have let my foot off. But I just kept pushing because the story mattered to me, even when I didn't have all the answers. And obviously I didn't. I mean, I never knew what a storyboard was. I never knew what I mean, I knew what a story, not a shot list. I didn't know what that was, but you know, I had to do that with my DP and my first AD and my script supervisor. And I think what surprised me early on about directing this was like it wasn't the logistics, it wasn't the technical stuff. It was how much the crew looks to you as the director for creative confidence. How much they look up to you as a leader, how much they look up to you. Do you know your vision? And at some point, at some times, like it seemed like I didn't know what I was talking about. I wasn't confident because and I think it was like I would say the wrong thing and I'd be like, oh, well, that's bad. And I would get inside my mind and I'd be like, oh my God, they hate me. They're they're not respecting me right now, the blah blah blah. And like actually I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. I get inside my own head. I'm sorry. But like I think, even when I was figuring things out in pre-production, which was I think, you talk to the crew, a lot of them will say, yeah, pre-production was hell because we were just stuck in a room talking about what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Like, how is this gonna happen? Blah blah blah. And you know, a lot of the times it was just like I tried to be an authority figure while also trying to be like oh, the goofy guy, like, oh, you could be comfortable around me, and it just like it didn't metal well together. Like people just didn't take me seriously, and I think that was the biggest thing. Which I guess it's fine. I don't really care if people take me seriously, but it's like as a director, when you're on set, it's like you kind of need to be taken seriously. But even when figuring things out, like in pre-production, a lot of people, needed to believe me they needed to know where I was going with the vision. I think there was a lot of pressure of like a lot of people didn't know where this was going. A lot of people didn't read the script, or people didn't understand what I was trying to say, because communication. But that taught me a huge lesson about leadership and leading a crew and directing. Directing just leading, you leading as director. And I think another thing it really tested me on was the fire sequence and the big demon. And if any of my crew is listening to this episode, um, sorry for that. I originally wrote a big demon into the script, and I really, really loved the idea of it. And I was like, this is gonna be so scary, and we're gonna create this fucking monster. And then I never realized that, oh, we have like no budget because I'm funding it and I'm broke. And also, how the fuck are we gonna make a demon? So we just went with the dead soldier, and my prop master and my production designer, shout out to Raina Beckman Scholes and Magnolia Craig, both created the dead soldier, did the makeup on Caleb Kilman, did the bullet holes in his suit. I mean, there's so many little details you might not catch, but watch the movie again, watch it again. I mean, wonderful. I mean, there's just so many little things that they did, and they did awesome. But that was a big thing that was changed. We couldn't do fire because it was a safety hazard on set. I was really mad about that, and I was willing to just say, "Fuck it, we're gonna go against the film club and do fire anyways." Which my film crew was just like, "Fuck no, we're not." So that was a big thing. At first that demon was just such a big part of the story because I need to plug in my computer. It wasn't a big part of the story because I need to plug my computer. It was a big part of the story because it was just supposed to be like, to me, it was like the climax of the story. And that was what people were going to be like, oh my God, what's happening? And he's like, I drew out this demon, what I wanted him to look like. And in hindsight, I took that to my production designer and I was like, this is what I want the demon to look like. And in hindsight, I kind of just gave the picture to her and it was just like, okay, what is she supposed to do with this? But in pre-production, I realized it also didn't fit the tone we were creating. We can't create a demon. A lot of people came to me, and were like, yeah, this like why if we can't find a meaning of why Brown turns into a demon in Blonde's eyes, except just Blonde's tripping on LSD, um, then there's no meaning for it. How about because we're having the war themes, let's turn him into a dead soldier. And my dumbass um, was like, oh, we'll have him turn into a dead soldier and then morph into a demon. And I must have been on fucking crack in that pre-production meeting, but I don't know. I think that's when it really turned when my crew was like, okay, this guy's fucking crazy. But yeah, we replaced it with the dead soldier, which it fits so much well. And I think it was Cass that came up with that idea, or it was Leo, or it was Raina. I don't know. It was one of them. But shout out to one of them because maybe it was the whole crew. I don't know. But yeah, whoever said that was awesome. Thank you. Made the film better. But that choice really made the film, it grounded the film more emotionally and made it feel more real and personal. And I think it also added more subtext to the war themes and the anti-war themes and the draft dodging world building that we created. And a lot of that world building, a lot of the draft dodging world building was created in editing when I was editing with my secondary editor, Christoph Pfeiffer, when we were just editing in his house and we were having his dad like beta test the movie. And shout out to his dad because his dad, when you watch the movie, it shows up with this executive order. And his dad was like, why don't you put that in? Why don't you put it in executive? Like, why don't you explain what that is? So the film, even if nobody reads that um, entirely, they'll know, oh, well, there's a bill that's passed about draft daughters. Then they can piece together the film themselves. So it's not as ambiguous. And I think that's what kind of hinders the film a little bit, is like it's so ambiguous, but like I kind of don't give a shit because I kind of love that. I love the ambiguity. I'm not going to try to pronounce that word. Um, I think that's what makes it stronger. And now my screen is off. Is this thing working? Anyway, I guess I'm having a lot of technical issues. But I think that's what adds to the film. And yeah, the more I talk about it, the more I love it. I think that one of the biggest the most important lesson I learned was learning what to let go. Whether it was a script idea, whether it was control over something, or just fear. A lot of people are, I mean, not a lot. There's still some people that are upset with how I handle things, and I get that. Like, I totally get that. But like, it's also, I was still learning. But I mean, I was learning, and I didn't always know how to listen. Um, but I think I hope they know that I've grown since then. Um, and I just want to keep making movies to entertain. Let's talk about one of the most intense sequences, which is the acid sequence, which is like the climax of the film, and I think it's one of the most important sequences of the film, probably one of the most captivating to me, at least. Um, I kind of wanted to convey the character's psychological turmoil. So on set, we used two lights. So Jacob, or Gaffer, Jacob Lynn, I believe. Jacob Lynn. Yes, Jacob Lynn used it was kind of just this small LED light, and he waved his hand and he held it under Brown's face and then Blonde's face, and we did like a low angle. And he just waved his hand back and forth, and then we also had a big LED light just planted with like a long cord up to Aiden's house, who was blonde. So we were on his house, his property, because he lives on a ranch. And we had that on, and it was just orange, and we had Broden just waving sticks in front of that to create like a fire effect. And it was, I mean, I didn't think it was going to work. I was so worried about that because we weren't going to be able to make fire. And again, that was another one of my stupid ideas, which I was like, let's just hold a lighter in front of the camera. I don't fucking know. Um, yeah, I said a lot of stupid things. Um, I kind of don't think before I say stuff. But in the editing, we used a combination because I always wanted from the start I wanted war sounds, gunshots, babies crying, women screaming, drums, and Brodemach, praise him, man, because I mean, he was just like, I could just make a score for you. He doubled as composer, and he also did composing on Darius Opus, so go check that one out as well. But his score, when I was listening it, and I'm sorry, Broden, for this, when I was listening to it by myself, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. But then we put it in with all those effects, and I was just like, this is fucking amazing. I mean, like it was genius how it worked. But we used all of that. Once we all put that together, we overlaid every, Aiden reaction. Just we lowered the opacity and then put the clips on top of each other and then just kind of shorten them so it was like happening at different times, and he's like floating around, and it's all of like these different things behind him. But if you know what I mean, just go watch the movie. But we did that to, you know, have this sense of disorientation and dread, and the babies are crying and everybody's screaming, and it's like, what the fuck is, oh, he's on drugs. But all these choices that were made were aiming to immerse the audience in Blonde's reality. Because I really wanted to be like, okay, he's on drugs. He's like hearing war sounds. He's hearing everything. Then he finally sees his friend as this dead soldier, and it's scary, and it's just like, what is happening? Like he's disassociated, and he's arming himself with a knife. And I actually, that's one of my favorite shots, actually, is when he's holding the knife up and the moon is behind him, and Brown is holding the gun, and then we have the two shot of Brown holding the gun and Aiden with the knife, and that's my favorite shot. Another thing about that is they were supposed to have rifles in the movie, but we couldn't get that just because we were filming. I think we were filming in Loveland, and it was at a park, and it was a public park, but to be fair, we were filming by a river, and it was out in the open. It's kind of safety issue if we're just carrying around rifles, so let's just have one gun. And again, you know, yeah, I was a little frustrated with that because I was like, oh man, that's gonna take it away. But I mean, that just created such a good power dynamic without even us realizing it's like, okay, he just has one gun. We'll just leave it at that. It created such a power dynamic because then Blonde has mainly all the power. He has the gun, the whole time, while Brown has the radio, which is making Blonde go crazy. So it's like they're fighting. And actually, I kind of want to dive into that. That is the scene that I think is also very important to the story is when Brown almost shoots Blonde. When he whips around and hears a crack. Um, and they both have switched. Blonde now has the radio and Brown now has the gun. And I think it was also one of the most complicated scenes to direct, just because it's a very tense scene and it's an unspoken power shift between the two characters because now Brown holds the power while Blonde kind of he doesn't necessarily hold the power in the scene because the radio is an annoying Blonde or Brown, sorry. Um, Directing that was very, very tricky because it was all about subtlety and it was always about the direction or the energy between them needed to feel real and raw and unpredictable. And I think it helped that, Aiden and Caleb are friends in real life. It also helped that like the reason I like to work with Aiden a lot is, he'll help me direct scenes or he understands on a deep level just because we've been friends for so long, what his character and what the other characters are feeling. And I think that's why I really like to have him in projects. A lot of people don't like that because he's been in all my movies. I just like him. He's a reliable actor. He's a really good actor. He's a great writer. But I mean, he was very helpful. He was incredible in helping me find that balance. Not only just because he wrote it, but because he helped me and Caleb both. We all explored the emotions that they were feeling and the motivations, that both characters were feeling in that scene. And the whole time when we were doing it, he would suggest like adjustments. He'd be like, okay, well, am I going to walk here from this tree or where am I going to go? And timing. And he kind of helped me visualize like how the power dynamic is going to shift from Blonde to Brown. And it was just such a huge collaboration, huge difference. But I love that scene just because it shows that they're trying to reconnect and they both offer, you know, something to connect with each other, but it's like Blonde offers the radio, while Brown offers the gun. Blonde doesn't want the gun. Brown thinks that Blonde is like, oh, let's shoot the bottles together, but Blonde is kind of disgusted because he's like, I don't really want to shoot the gun with you, it's okay, But um, yeah, I think it's also that scene really speaks truth to the film's theme, trusting each other, the fear of, oh my God, my friend almost just killed me. Um, and the fragile bond of friendship and how that can both save and destroy you if both of you are leaning on each other, both of you are relying on each other to survive. So I think that one is such a big scene in the movie. I think it's great. Shout out to the voice actors. We got Violet Dempsey, who they were on the radio doing the Weather Channel. We got Patrick Bermudez. He was the political channel along with Christoph Pfeiffer, who was also the political channel. And then we had, I think that was it. The pastor voice was me, obviously. I don't know if that's obvious, but yeah, I had to do that with Broden and his roommate in the room, which was a little embarrassing, but it's whatever. But yeah, shout out to the actors. Shout out to producer Tyler, my first AD Cass Puccio, my script supervisor Leo Kalman, my prop master Magnolia Craig, production designer Raina Beckmer Scholes, key grip and composer Broden Bach, DP, editor and voice actor Christoph Pfeiffer, first AC Alyssa, don't know, remember your last name. On set photographer Isabel, and then we had my two sound operators, Alexander Nelson and Ash Gensel. Am I missing anybody else? Try to shout out the whole crew. No, I think I got. Oh, Gaffer, Jacob Lynn. Shout out to my gaffer. Yeah. Well, thank you to everybody that watched this video. Um, yeah, thank you to my crew for helping me film this movie. Um, yeah, thank you.